Imagine if you can create an AI agent that connects with every other app out there, be it Slack or Gmail or your Google Calendar. Well, that's possible with the new OpenAI release. And honestly, this is such a big news. OpenAI released support for MCPs within their responses API. But first, if you don't know what an MCP is, it's a new protocol that was released by Anthropic, the company behind Claude. And what it does is it standardizes API connections all across the web. So back in the day, if you wanted to create an AI agent that connects with a standard app like Slack or Twitter, you would have to do custom API integrations. But with MCP, all of this is way more simpler. Think of it like a USB-C port where you can plug in any app or any device and it would work out of the box. And now the ChatGPT's API directly connects with all these MCPs, which is actually a very big deal. It makes it very simple to create an AI agent that connects with any specific app. Literally, you can connect with any app using these MCPs now. And today I'm going to show you step by step how you can build out such an AI agent that connects with your Google Calendar and through which you can schedule meetings, you can optimize your daily calendar and all of that. If you want to get the most out of it, I would recommend you to follow along. If you have never used Cursor or any AI tool in the past, even then you would be able to do it. And with that, let's get started. Let's go through the blog post that they recently released. In the blog post, they mentioned that they have added support for MCP servers, image generation, code interpreters, and improvements to file search. Apart from this, they also mentioned that they have included a background mode for handling long running tasks, which makes the entire API very useful for stuff like analyzing a big PDF document or going through the web and scraping information. Page there also showed some examples. So the first example over here on the right is using Shopify. A person is adding blemish toner pads into their Shopify cart using this MCP. Similarly, there are examples of using a web search tool and then using the Twilio MCP for sending a message to a specific endpoint. So this enables a lot more use cases and all of this without integrating multiple APIs in your app. Basically, what you can do right now is you can just build a chatbot using the responses API and then you can hook up multiple MCPs to it and they can perform all the things on these different platforms. Finally, coming on the pricing, all the things around text generation, image generation remain the same and there is no additional cost for using any MCP server or calling it. Just try to build something out of it. In this video, we are gonna build out a calendar assistant chatbot. We would be using the OpenAI Responses API, the Zapier MCP, and Cursor for building this out. And you won't require any coding experience for following this video. So let's get started. The first thing we would be doing is we would be going on Zapier's website, zapier.com/MCP. Over here, I will just click on get started and I will quickly log in into the platform. You can build out remote MCP servers that can do certain actions using the Zapier platform. So I will create a new MCP server. I will come up over here. Since we are using the OpenAI API over here, I will just select that and I will create the MCP server. Now within the MCP server, there are a bunch of different tools that you can use. You can perform any action on a Google Sheet, on a Google Form, on Drive and bunch of other stuff. There are so many over here that you can choose from them. For this video, I will select Google Calendar over here and I will select the first option, add all available Google Calendar tools. I will just do that and I will click on connect. I would have to select the account for which I would want to connect the Google Calendar. I will quickly do this and I will allow this. And with that, it will add a bunch of tools over here. Things like deleting an event, creating an event, or finding an event, or adding a attendee to an event and all of those stuff. Once I have configured it, I will go to connect. On this page, it gives me instructions on how I can use this MCP server. So from here, I can copy the URL at which this MCP server is live. And then apart from that, it also shows me code examples on how I can install this whenever I'm making a new project. So I will come to this later. And within this, there is also link for using the OpenAI's responses API documentation. I will open this up in the new tab. Now that we have the MCP server set up and we also have documentation for using the OpenAI's responses API, we will create a PRD using both of this information. If you are new to the channel, this is the approach we have been taking from a while. where the first step for building anything with AI is figuring out what you want to build. Now that we have figured out what we want to build and what are the different pieces of technology we want to use, then we move on to the second step, creating a PRD, which basically is a plan for AI that it can use for building it. And then finally, once we have that plan, we implementing it using Cursor. So we are done with the first step over here. The second step for us would be creating a PRD. Now for creating a PRD, you can use any reasoning model over here. You can use Grok 3, you can use Gemini 2.5 Pro, or in this case, I will be using O4 Mini for this. So I will be going inside T3 chat. This is basically a place for using all the different AI models. You can also use this model directly on ChatGPT's website. I would be using O4 Mini over here, and I would be dropping a small prompt for creating this PRD. So this is a prompt that I have been using. Within this, you just have to change the highlighted text. You just have to change the highlighted text within this prompt. I will start with the first thing over here. I mentioned I want to build an assistant for using Google Calendar. It should check my calendar, suggest how I can improve my productivity, set up meetings for me, and edit the calendar for me. So that is the entire app that I want to build out. Now coming on to the guidelines. So these are some things that I have seen working well when you are trying to create a PRD like this. So we will leave this as it is. Now jumping on to the next part. So within the technical stack, I have mentioned that we would be using Next.js. It's basically a app building framework. We will stick to this because this gives out good result and pretty much the standard across all the web apps. Then we would be using the OpenAI Responses API, and we would be using the Zapier MCP. And finally, we would be using ShadCN. ShadCN helps you make your UI consistent everywhere because it is a set of components that your website can use throughout. Now, next, I've added the details for my app. The first pointer is I want the user to interact with the chatbot. This chatbot is connected with the Responses API in the background. The second thing is whenever the user wants to make a change in their calendar events or just want to pull up information about the events, the Responses API should be using the Zapier MCP in the background. So this is how the flow looks like. A chatbot is directly connected with the OpenAI Responses API. Now from here, this has access to all the OpenAI tools, things like image generation, things like text generation, things like web search. And apart from that, we have also hooked up our Zapier MCP over here, which gives it the access to our Gmail calendar, that it can make edits in the calendar, it can read all the calendar events. So this is how the entire flow looks like. Now coming back on the details about the app, whenever the agent makes a change in the calendar, we want the user to confirm if the change should be executed or not. So like a accept and a reject button, pretty much like how Cursor or any other AI agent work where they ask for your approval when they are changing a file. And finally, I want it to not ask for approval if it is just reading the information on the calendar. Now moving on to the next part, which is our initial file structure. So for this, we would have to set up a new project into Cursor, and then we would have to drop the file structure from here there. If you're new to Cursor, this would be the first screen that you land on once you have downloaded Cursor and you're signed into it. Over here, you can clone Over here, you can clone a repository, something that already exists on GitHub, or you can open a new project. I will create a new project. I will click on Open Project. This would redirect me to my local files. I would be creating a new folder within the root directory of my local system. I will call this Calendar Agent, and I will create this. Once I create this, I will just open this up. And when I open this, on the left, you will be seeing all the files within this repository. Right now, this is blank, so there is nothing. On the right, you will see the agent through which you would be making changes within your code. This is basically a chatbot that has access to all the code within your files. And if you click on the toggle over here, then you will see a terminal on the bottom. This is basically a way of communicating with your code. I will quickly create a new Next.js project over here. I have to type in this command npx create next app @latest, and then there is a dot and a hyphen. This is a way of installing all the required files for Next.js, basically the app framework that we are using. And the dot and the hyphen at the last basically means that we want all of the files within this folder itself. Once I press enter, it will ask me a bunch of questions around how I want my app. I want to use TriScript, yes. ESLint, yes. Tailwind, CSS, yes. src directory, yes, no, yes. And after I answer all of these questions, it will set up a repository over here on the left. This basically has all the files that are required for creating a basic app. Once we are done with the installation, you have to run a second command in the terminal. So the second command is to get the file structure of your entire repository. So this is the command. If you are running this command for the first time, then you would also have to download this first. So for that, you would have to run this command called brew install tree. And once this is downloaded in your local system, then you can just run this command called tree. I pressed enter here and it gave me the entire file repository of this project. I will just come up on the top and I will just copy this entire file structure, and I will go back in the prompt for creating the PRD, and I will just replace this entire file structure with the new file structure that I downloaded. At the end, I have to add documentation for using different APIs that we are using within our project. The first thing is we are using Zapier MCP for this. So what I will do is I will just copy this entire page from here and I will just drop this as a documentation over here. Similarly, then I will come on the OpenAI's website. I've browsed to the responses section over here and I will copy this entire thing until get a model response section. So these are only the two sections that we need: create a response and get model response. The rest of the sections are not relevant for us right now. So I will just copy these two and I will also paste this here. I will mention this as OpenAI responses APIs documentation. And lastly, I will come on the initial blog of seeing how to use the MCP server with the responses API. I will browse to one of these examples. I will copy it from here and I will go back in my prompt and I will mention over here example on how to use. I've pasted it here mentioning that this is an example on how to use a MCP server with the OpenAI responses API. And I've also mentioned that this is in Python, but for us, we would want to do this in Next.js. So I will just mention it in the bracket over here. We want to do this in JavaScript. And with that, our prompt is complete. I will just copy this entire thing from here and I will drop it in the chat with any reasoning model. For this case, I am using O4 Mini. I will just drop this entire prompt over here. Along with this, I would be also pasting a couple of screenshots. The first screenshot would be of the entire flow here. So I will just copy this screenshot from here and I will just drop it in from as well. Along with this, I will also go on Zapier MCP's website. I will go on the configure tab over here and I will take a screenshot of all the tools that are available. I will just drop, and with all of that, I will just send this. This would take it around a minute to generate the entire PRD. Meanwhile, you can also add multiple other tools within the same assistant. So if you would want it to also have access to your Gmail and your Google Docs, or let's say if you use Slack as well. So if you would want to also create a channel where it posts a summary of your entire meetings in the Slack, all of this can be done using these other tools as well. Another thing that we would quickly do is we will come back on Cursor and we will run our project locally. For that, you need to run this command called npm run dev. Once you put in this command and you run this, then the entire website will start running on your system locally. So we will go to this URL and on this URL, you will see a boilerplate code. This is the default code over here. You would be changing all of this to create our website. Coming back to our PRD. So I had to regenerate this because the response that I got from O4 Mini was not as good as I was expecting. I tried using Claude Sonnet 4 reasoning here and that gave me a pretty good response. It considered everything that I told it. On the other hand, when I was using O4 Mini, it missed out on some of the implementation details. Gemini 2.5 Pro also works really well. And after copying this, I will go back on my cursor repository. Over here, I will create a new folder. I will call it .cursor. And within this, I would be creating a new file. I will call it prd.md. Within this, I am pasting the entire file that we generated with Claude right now. Anything within this folder .cursor would be indexed by cursor on every search. Now let's get started with implementation. I'm using Claude Sonnet 4 for implementing this. And before getting started, what I will do is I will also set up a remote GitHub repository. The reason why I'm doing this is because once you get a stable version and you would want to get back to it, something like saving a checkpoint in a video game. So I will come on my GitHub, I will create a new repository and I will call this repository calendar agent and I will create this repository. You can keep this private. In this case, I'm keeping it public. I will create this new repository. And for pushing an existing repository to this, I will copy the command that it has provided in the second section here. I will copy this and I will come back on my repository. I'm opening a new terminal because on the existing terminal, our app is already running. I will click on this plus icon and I will drop all the commands that I just got. It would take it around a minute to push everything on my GitHub. And once it do that, then on refreshing this, I will see all the files be committed over here. Now let's start implementing a PRD. For doing that, every time that I want to execute any step, I will copy the step itself and I will keep on pasting it in the chat over here. Since we already have a Next.js project initialized, I will start with the second step, which is installing ShardCN. Once I send this, then I will follow along with the rest of the steps. The first command it has generated for us is for installing ShardCN on our setup. I will just run this command. With that, it will start running the command and now it wants us to provide some inputs in the terminal. So for this, we would have to pop out this terminal and you can honestly select any preset here and get done with the step. The next step from here would be creating a .env file where we would be saving all our environment variables, basically all our API keys. So I will create that new file here. I will call it .env local. I will copy the 3 variable names that it has provided us here. These would be, and I will go back in .env.local file. I will start with adding my OpenAI API key here. I will just go to platform.openai.com and on this and within this I will come on the settings tab here. I will go to API keys and I will quickly create a new API key. I just created a new API key and I added it in the .env.local file. The next thing I would do is getting the required variables from Zapier. For that, I'm going back on mcp.zapier.com. Over here, go to the connect tab and I will quickly copy the MCP server URL and API key and I will paste them in .env.local as well. Now I've added all the 3 variables within the .env.local file. I will mark phase 1 as done and I will also mark the sub steps as done too. And then we would be moving to the phase 2 of building this app. So within this PRD, it has broke down the entire implementation in multiple phases and within every phase, there are multiple steps as well. So we are done with the first phase. Now we have 4 more phases left. The fourth phase is adding some advanced features. We won't be doing that in the MVP. So you'll be building this out until the third phase or step 3.2. Now let's start with the second phase. I will copy step 2.1 here and I will open up a new chat window. Over here, I will mention let's execute and it already have the PRD and it already have prd.md as one of the attached files. So I will just do that and I will send this prompt. After this step, you will see your app shaping up a little because it has started creating components. So when you go on the local link, you will start seeing all the different components showing up here. Right now, we have changed some of the styling components. That's why you will see that this page does not have text center aligned or the black background. Everything is gone now. Another thing that I noticed with using Claude Sonnet 4 is that it is much better in using the tools. For every change that it does, it goes through all the respective repositories, go and scan the correct port, and it never fails to use the right tools. They use this tool for checking multiple files or adding or making edits to any respective file. Any other model so far made some mistakes in using these tools. For example, when I was using Gemini, it made a lot of errors in using these tools. Even when it had access to the edit tool, it asked me to make edit to some of the files. So with time in the future, I think all the models would be much more better at using these tools. And honestly, I feel everyone would be coding using AI in that time. You would just need to understand the basics Stuff like that, what you need to connect for what to work, which MCP or which API to use, and rest of the coding part would be taken care of AI agents. All our changes are done, so let's check out our app. Right now, it's mostly just text. We would be adding all the UI components later. Calendar Assistant, AI powered calendar management and productivity insights. Welcome to your Calendar Assistant. I can help you manage your calendar, schedule meetings, and provide insights about your productivity. And then it has a text box here. Uh, there is also a word limit calculator over here. So with this, step 2.1 is complete. I will mark this step as done and let's move on to step 2.2. One thing that you need to notice is that your .env.local file where all your environment variables are saved is not visible to your cursor agent. It is not a bug, but this is actually a security feature because through this process, your ABI keys remain secured. So right now, when I implemented step 2.2, it asked me to create .env.local file again because it cannot see the existing file there. So that's why I will mention over here, we already have a .env.local file. So I skipped creating the .env.local file and it is proceeding with the rest of the steps that are part of this segment. We are done with step 2.2 as well. That means that at this point, our chatbot should be working. So let's send a message here. Hey, how are you doing? And I will send this message. Let's see if we receive a response here. I receive a message from the assistant. I understand you're asking about I can help you with calendar management. What would you like to do? Okay, so this seems to be working. We received a response here. So let's go back and start implementing the rest of the steps as well. I see that until this point, we haven't done the Zapier MCP integration, so our calendar changes won't be working. So let's test all of that after this step is done. So let's open up a new chat window and over here, I will copy this entire step and I will mention let's execute. Cursor is done implementing the step 3.1. But I see there is a problem over here. The problem is it used the chat completions API rather than the responses API. Although our PRD specifically mentions that we want to use the OpenAI responses API, the thing is that every model is trained on the cutoff info and Claude Sonnet, when it got released, by then the completion, by then the responses API did not had this new functionality that it have right now. That's why it got confused. So what I would be doing right now is I will go back on the OpenAI. I will go back on the new blog that OpenAI released. And from here, I will copy some examples to show it that how we want to use the new responses API. So I will copy this example. I will go back here and I will mention we want to use the responses API rather than chat completion. It is also mentioned in our BRD. There is a code snippet on how you can use it. Please note that the example is in Python, but our project is written in Next.js. And then I will drop the example. I will drop the example from Shopify. I will also copy the example from Stripe. I will also copy the example from Wheelio and I will paste it here. What I would do out of this learning is that I will make this specific instruction part of the original prompt that I gave for creating the PRD. So that when it is creating the initial PRD over there, it specifically mentions and it emphasizes on the point that we want to use the responses API and it do include the examples for this. So I will go to the initial prompt. I will mention over here that we want to use the responses API rather than the chat completions API. Please make sure to mention this in PRD and include code examples. So this way, this would be part of the original PRD itself and we won't have to manually change this later in the process. So let's try out our product now. After the recent changes, our UI also got a bit of a glow up. It still does not look like a finished UI, but this looks very much like a chatbot right now rather than how it was before. Let's try it again. I will drop a message. I will say, can you see the calendar events on? Can you see the calendar events for today? I will also open up my Zapier MCP portal. just to see that if any actions are happening using the MCP. So on usage, I see that there is no usage. I will just go on the history tab here. And on history, there are no actions as well. Right now, I see that our chatbot is not able to call the APIs. So I see the same response every time. It's finished making the changes. And to check this, that if the changes are working fine, I came up on my Zapier MCP portal. So over here, when I go on history, I see that a action was performed by the responses API. It used the list all calendar events function over here. And if I look at the output over here, this also seems to be fine at all. So let's try it on the front end itself. Can you tell me what all events I have scheduled for this week? This is working fine. Let's say if you would want to create new calendar events, can you create a event for me at 4 p.m. tomorrow? So I will try creating an event now. So I will just send this. I will mention the title as focus session. Please don't add anyone else on this. So right now when I try to create this event, it asked me that would I like to add this to my calendar now. So when I say yes, I think it would add it to my calendar. So let's go back on my calendar and see if the new event is being added. The chat, it says that it has created the event. Let's go back on Zapier to see if it has actually done it properly. Over here, I see that it has actually used the MCP to create an event. Within this, the time and the title seems to be fine. It has created an event for 4 p.m. tomorrow, and the name of the event is Focus Session. Apart from this, it has also set up reminders for this. Let's go on my calendar and check if this is working fine. I don't see it on my calendar yet. I don't see a output over here. So it could be that the event was not created properly. I will copy this from here and I will drop it in a new chat in Cursor to see that what could be a problem over here. When I use the chat for creating a new event on my calendar, I've got this log on Zapier and no event was created. I'm certain that the calendar and Zapier is properly connected. Can you tell me why this is still happening? Is there an issue with how we are using the MCP? So when I checked with Cursor, it said the problem could be that there could be conflicting instructions over here. At one place, we are mentioning that we want our reminders to be set up in the default fashion. But apart from that, we are also specifying that we would want reminders in email and that too 10 minutes before the event. So this could be creating a conflict because of which the event is not created. So let's mention this in our instructions for the API itself. So let's mention it here. That makes sense. Can you make sure that you mention this in the responses API when it's using the MCP server? And if I look at the changes it has made, it has added custom instructions for mentioning that how the format for MCP's information should be. I think this should fix it. So I will just refresh this page and I will send my instructions again. I tried creating a event for 4 p.m. tomorrow. It finally started working. It created a event when I asked it to. Finally, what I will do is I will just improve the UI of this chatbot over here, because if I scroll and go beyond a certain limit, this is a line that comes in between. So I will open up. So I will just go back to Cursor. I will open up a new chat and I will select Claude Sonnet 4 over here. It's very good for improving the UI of your app. And I will quickly mention, let's improve the UI of our app, the home page. And I will mention all the issues that I see right now. The scroll on the home page does not work. And honestly, apart from this, the UI looks fine. I will just ask it to make the UI much more intuitive. Let's wait for a minute and see what it comes out with. If you would want to make this prompt even better, you can just drop some examples of the kind of UIs that you want or that has been worked. Or you can even go to UI libraries. This is another video on my channel where I show you that how you can use UI libraries for improving the front end of your product. You can check it out. And with a single prompt, it actually made the UI much more better. There are prompts over here. So if I can just tap on one of these buttons. If I click on find free time, or if I click on today's schedule, it will just type in this message here, what's on my calendar today. And it would just pull up all the events that are on my calendar right now and it would give me a schedule. So this pulled up events from a day that is very much in the past. So I think the problem over here is that it mentioned today's date incorrectly in the initial prompt. So I will mention that today is 28th of May, and let's send this again. Let's select the calendar. It pulled up the events for the correct date, 28th May, but still it was stuck in 2023. So this time I also told it the year and it is working fine. So I think natively this app has a problem that it does not know what day it is today. And that's an easy problem to fix. So came back to cursor and I mentioned that I want it to pull up the date and the time zone of the user from their system itself. So when I dropped that prompt, it just added a couple of lines to the code, pulling out all that information from the system. And after this change, the responses were fixed. When I created an event mentioning that I want to create it for 11 p.m. today, it was able to recognize my time zone and it was able to create the event for the date itself. And with that, this agent is complete. To be honest, this is a very good starting point for you to just build out agents and see that what all is possible with it. I hope you were able to follow along the tutorial and you actually built it out for yourself. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.